The only
Is
question
that
is
why
how much you
is
will
that
have.
why parity is so important with the disk drives and
Parity
things like
doesn't
that?
fix this problem.
It doesn't even fix the problem,
No,
man.
parity because it's basically it's a bit that flips underneath that doesn't get noticed, right?
Man, you know what's crazy about that
Um,
though?
what's that?
Uh, it's because the whole time, right? I don't. Again, I haven't dealt with tape nearly as often or even close to it,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah,
disk and then cloud, right? You got
yeah.
this, you got the object store cloud. So I when I did touch on tape a few times and dealing with people who dealt with tape, some of the things that came across was like, all right, you have like LTO version this versus that, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so then every other certain amount of years, I still never captured like how often, but you had to change a version or you had to
But you,
make
but
sure
you didn't.
you
But you
didn't.
didn't.
Okay,
You had the opportunity to change. If right
okay.
now, if you've got an LTO1 drive, and if you don't
Hmm.
have one, you can go get one. You can still buy LTO1 drives. Not exactly easiest thing to find, but you can get them. If you've still got LTO1 tapes, all you had to do was hold on to your LTO1 drives, right?
Hmm.
And they're read compatible back 2 generations. So an
That's what it was.
LTO3 drive can read 2 and 1.
Hmm.
So today it's like LTO9. LTO9 can read 8 and 7. So you would need if you've got LTO4 tapes. Nobody has LTO1 tapes, right? But if but if
Right.
you've got LTO4 tapes, you need an LTO6, etc. Right? So you have the opportunity to move the data. You don't have to move the data. If you have it on disk drive, you have to move the data. It will
Yeah.
degrade if you're storing data for over 5 years. It will degrade. Tape is rated for 30. Optical is rated for 50. There are some optical things that are rated for longer than that. Optical has some other challenges, but basically, it's multiple orders of magnitude cheaper. Number one. Number two, you can make like 2 copies. So if you're worried about a tape, you can make 2 copies for way cheaper than you can make 1 copy on disk. You can
Yeah.
separate those copies by as much geography as you'd like, stored in a salt mine, whatever. And that will be there 30 years from now.
Right.
You have a choice in, let's say, 10 years, and you're like, listen, we made an LTO5 copy, and all our tapes are LTO5, and we've moved on to LTO8. You can
Hmm.
then consolidate all your LTO5 tapes onto LTO8. And there's a reason to do that because LTO8 would be much bigger. You'll fit a lot more data in the same space. Your Iron Mountain bill comes down. So there's a
Hmm.
reason to do it, but you don't have to do it, right?
No, I
Um,
never
the
knew
other
that.
really interesting thing about tape versus disc is that the device and the drive are two separate entities, right?
Mm-hmm.
The well, I don't know how to call it. So basically, the medium
Hmm.
and the mechanics are separate. In a disk drive, they're the same. They're all encased in one thing. When a
You're
disk
right.
drive breaks, it's dead, right?
Yeah.
You got to send it to a super specialist to disassemble that in a clean room environment, pay thousands and thousands of dollars to hopefully
Hmm.
get that data back. A tape drive fails, you pull the tape out, you put it in a different tape drive.
Mm.
The tapes themselves rarely fail. It's just
Hmm.
a spool, right? Now they
Yeah.
did used to fail. I'm not, I've been around. They used to fail. And sometimes a tape itself would just implode and you get the like if you I don't know if you had cassette tapes back in the day, but you remember the tapes
Yeah.
get stuck
Yep.
inside the drive. Yeah,
Oh man,
that
I hated
has
that. You're like
happened back
turning
in the day.
around trying
Yeah.
to get.
Yeah, but that doesn't generally happen as often as a failed disk drive or a tape drive. So you get a failed tape drive, you put a different tape in there. So
Mhm.
we could do a whole show just on that. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. Tape has I think two bad things about it, right? Oh, let me let
Hmm.
me let me give you another thing about it that will also blow your mind. It's better at writing ones and zeros than disk is.
What?
Like there's something called the uncorrectable bit error rate, UBER, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every medium advertises that number. LTO9 is 2 orders of magnitude better. I think it's 2 orders of magnitude better than um, the best
With
SSDs
this,
or fiable channel drives, right?
man.
Meaning, like, let me just put it in. So I'm doing this from memory, but it's like 1 in 10 to the -19, something like that. That means like 1 bit on a 10 terabyte disk drive will be bad, right? You don't know which one, but 1 bit will be bad. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
On a disk, if that's the number on a disk, what I'm saying is if that was a tape, it would be, instead of 10 terabytes, it would be a petabyte. One
No,
bad bit in a petabyte. That's what 2 orders of magnitude difference does, right? So
man.
it's better at writing them ones to zero. So it's better at writing them in the first place. It's way better at holding on to them for longer periods of time, and it's way cheaper. So if you're storing data for many years, your absolute best thing to do it is to use a modern tape drive. Well,
Mm,
you could also look at something called MDisk, which is an optical platform. If you
mm-hmm.
got a ton of data, the problem there is write speed, right? Because burning stuff with lasers takes a lot more time.
Yeah.
But the tape drive has sort of, uh, you know, a couple of bad things. One is that it's not very good at going slow. This was the problem with backups this is what I built a whole career on. Everybody thought, oh, I don't have enough tape drives. Dude, you got too many tape drives. The number of
Mm-hmm.
times I would take somebody with 20 tape drives and tell them to shut off 10 of them, and we're going to do your backups with just 10, because there is a problem called shoe shining. If you have a tape drive that
Oh
wants to
yeah.
go 300 megabytes per second, it's not very
Mm-hmm.
good at going 20 megabytes per second.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wears out the drive, it wears out the tape. This was the problem for long periods of time. But you don't have that problem when you're using it with today's modern stuff. Basically, what you do is you have a whole bunch of data on object storage, and then you're like, I'm just going to spit it out to tape. I'm going to put 10 terabytes of data on this LTO tape,
Mm-hmm.
and it speeds it. It keeps that tape drive happy. You don't really have that problem. But that's why. So that's one of the problems. The other problem is that it's really crappy at random access. Right? If
No.
you need a file in the middle of the tape, you're going to be there for a few minutes.
Yeah.
You do that for a lot of objects, and you could have a performance problem.
Yeah. And that's, I
So
mean, if you
that's
think about, a lot more of our applications these days are like random access, right?
Yeah, that's why you
Versus
don't put actively
sequential.
used data on tape. It's just a bad
Got
idea,
you.
right?
Got you.
And
Got
that
you.
and that's and
That's
the
where it
slow
goes.
problem is why you don't do day-to-day operational backup to tape, right? It's
Uh-huh.
not good at going slow. Typical backups actually go quite slow. And so that's why we moved to disk as the main thing. And then
Mm,
so disk is much better for operational backup and recovery and for disaster recovery.
mm,
Tape, I think, beats it out for long-term archive. And then you asked about cloud. This really just goes back to my answer is the same as before, right? That if you there's just so many reasons to do cloud. Cloud is just another disk, right? So it just makes a lot of sense if you're a if you're a cloud company
mhm.
to use cloud as your backup and recovery and disaster recovery. So
Yeah, I always
that's an
say if
easy one.
you, yeah, from the cloud, I mean, I just go back to cloud, what you said, because I feel like we're definitely advocating for that. And you drop some knowledge on tape that is mind blowing. I mean, it makes me want to go back and actually tell a lot of the vendors and a lot of people that I've worked with, even customers over the years, and say, look, why are you moving off of tape? Like that real purpose right there that you mentioned, about tape is is important, right? Like even the random access, right? That's important. You just don't do it. Like people
Right.
need scenarios. There's still a reason for tape, and here's your reason, and it's cheaper when you're with tape if you go this route, and this is your reason that you're using it for these use cases specifically.
The other reason why cheap tape is cheaper, not just the medium is cheaper, but that thing I talked about, how the medium and the drive are separate. You buy
Hmm.
one tape drive, you can buy 1,000 tapes, right?
Hmm.
With disk, you buy the drive every time. So
Mhm.
the economics are different. With tape, you could buy 1,000 tapes, and use it with one tape drive, right? You can make as many copies as you want, spread them out as far as you'd like. Um, but again, with operational backup and recovery, it's just not. But but you look at things like there are a number of systems that have SSD in the front, disk in the middle, tape in the back with one giant active archive system. If stuff
Mhm.
isn't get used, if stuff doesn't get used, it gets moved out to the disk. Then if it still doesn't get used, it gets moved out to tape. You can automatically, some of them will automatically duplicate the data because an archive, by the way, still needs a backup, right?
Mm.
So you can actually make multiple copies in multiple regions, right? So that, because you do want that. You want everything you have, everything that matters to be in two locations at least, right?
Yeah.
Lest 9/11 happens or something.
Right. Right. It's so I want to highlight something, right? And I'll close it out around this, but something that you have mentioned, right, really makes me think about this small, medium to enterprise scenario, right? Because
Mhm.
now I'm thinking, man, it really depends on the amount of data you have. It depends on, where you fit in, small, medium, enterprise, right? And so when you think about small, medium enterprise level organization, where would you say on each one of those, would you think is the just, your opinion is the best place to put your data at
Yeah,
for back?
yeah, for backup purposes.
Yeah.
I think that's a good question. And, I was a consultant for a long time. So every answer is, it depends. And I'll say
Hmm.
that I'm going to make a couple of ultimatums, and I'm going to say there are always exceptions to these rules, right? But I think from, the S and the M and the SMB, right? Small and medium sized businesses, and even the middle enterprise, um, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be 100% cloud for everything.
Mm.
This is a cloud world. If you're 50 employees, tell me why you need a data center.
Right.
Uh, that data center is nothing but risk, nothing but trouble. You're going to be paying for an IT person to manage 50 servers, or not. You don't need 50 servers for 50 people. Sorry, you're going to pay for an IT person. You're at minimum you're going to be paying for a service that's going to come in and service them for you. And my question is why? Right?
Right.
Everything you need as a small and medium business is available in the cloud as a service or
Hmm.
something that you can rent. Why in the world? And it's more secure, it's less expensive, it's more predictable.
Scalable.
That's just in general from an IT perspective. And then, from a backup perspective, 100% in the cloud, right?
Mhm.
And the larger you get as an enterprise, the only reason not to use the cloud for there's maybe two reasons. One is, generally speaking, the more forward thinking companies like Druva that are SaaS based, we're
Mhm.
focused on modern workloads, right? We're focused on
Mhm.
Windows, Linux, VMware,
Mhm.
Hyper-V, AHV, Microsoft 365, Salesforce, these things. We don't
Right.
we don't know for we don't know for Solaris, right? By the way, we do
Mhm.
we do backup NetApp, right? But we
Oh,
don't know
nice.
for Solaris or AIX or whatever. But increase, and by the way, I cut my teeth on those things, but I'm starting to get to that, like, seriously, you still got HPUX, right? Like, the HP hasn't come out with a new version of HPUX in 15 years, and you still have one? What the
Right.
hell? Right? What are you doing? Right?
Yeah.
How is that secure? How is that whatever? But anyway, that's one. If you still got those guys, right? All that
Mhm.
stuff I cut my teeth on 30 years ago, right? You still got an AT&T System 5 3B2 sitting around. That's what I cut my teeth.
Mhm.
That was my first box. By the way, if you do, I'd love to hear from you. Can't imagine there's a 3B2 out there in the wild. But
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine.
yeah, that would be a reason not to use the cloud. But even then, keep using your on-prem backup system for that, right? You know,
Mhm.
you're currently using Net Backup, Commvault, you know, ArcServe, one of those older guys. Maybe even you're using one of our competitors like Rubrik or Cohesity, and maybe they
Mhm.
support Solaris and we don't. Knock yourself out for that stuff. But everything else, the economics, the technology, the ease of use, the cost of doing it with a SaaS-based service in the cloud, I don't know. It just makes so much more sense to me than doing an on-prem system. So, and that's regardless of size, unless you know you're the 10 petabyte shop with a straw.
Right, right, right. If you're that, then you have other problems, right? So,
Yeah.
if I were to name in my eyes, you could probably correct me on this, but I'm thinking, man, throughout my career so far, I've heard of certain backup companies, right? If you're like that small, medium company, even enterprise, I have heard Druva before.
Mhm.
Uh, I've heard of Veeam, and I hate to, throw competitors out there because I'm sure a competitor. I
Fine.
just in your head, what do you think are like these top 3 to 5 companies, right? Definitely throw Druva
Three
in there, right?
three
You
is
got to do
three
it.
is hard, right? So in the virtualization space, Veeam is clearly king, right? They've
Hmm.
got like, I don't know, 700,000 customers. It's 700,000 small customers, right? Their ASP is all pretty small.
Right.
I mean, you know, they're a billion. I don't know where they're at, but they said they were a billion in revenue. You got
Hmm.
700,000 customers. That's not right. That's
Hmm.
$10 a customer or whatever. Maybe my no, that's $100. That's $1,000 a customer. I don't know. It's not a lot, right? Um, the but they're clearly king in the virtualization space. I would say if you were building if you wanted a new on-prem backup space or backup system at this point, you're probably looking at Rubrik or Cohesity, right?
Okay.
You know, you're probably if it's new, you're probably not looking at the net backups and Commvaults. They're still there. Commvault is still, I'm pretty sure revenue wise, they're still the biggest in the heterogeneous space. Um, but if you're building a new backup system, I would ask, why at this point are you building a system where you're responsible for both the OS and the application? From a
Hmm.
security and management perspective, why would you want to be why would you want to be responsible for Windows and Linux and all of the stuff that comes with that, and then also the backup application? So if I was to do an
It's a lot of
on-prem
work.
system today, and by the way, the same Veeam has the same problem, right?
Okay.
Where you know it's Veeam running on Windows, right? So you're responsible for the security of the Windows box as well as the Veeam software. I'd be looking at one of those on-prem, probably either Rubrik or Cohesity if I wanted an on-prem system. But if
Hmm.
what I wanted was to just, a phrase that I like is if I wanted to get out of the backup business and just get straight to the restore business,
Hmm.
I would look at a SaaS provider like Druva. We're clearly the leader in that space.
Hmm.
We have, I'd say, one fast follower in Clumio, but they're much smaller and much smaller focus, as well as much smaller in terms of install base.
Hmm.
All these other guys, basically everybody I just mentioned, they're all trying to get into our space, but essentially what they've done is they've lifted and shifted their technology into the cloud,
Hmm.
which is an approach, right? It works. It's not that it doesn't work, but long term, I think they're going to have cost problems, right?
Right.
And ultimately, that means either their business will lose money, either one of three things. Either their business will lose money or they'll become much more expensive. I think right now it's a loss leader for them. Or they will have to completely redevelop, they'll have to refactor their software for the cloud. I think
Hmm.
that third is the least likely thing to happen because
That
they
makes
already
sense.
have, right, because then you have two code trees, right?
Hmm.
You work at a hardware company, you know what it's like to have multiple code trees. It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So,
Headache.
I think if you're looking at a cloud-based, a SaaS-based system, I would want to know how cloud native they are. And
Right.
if they're, if they're any of the products that I just mentioned, with the exception of Clumio, they're lifted and shifted. That's not a good long-term strategy, right?
Yeah.
It's a quick way to get into the cloud, but it's not good from a cost. I mean, you're renting all your hardware all the time, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing.
Which is very different than having a cloud native service that scales up and scales down its use of the cloud. That's the way Druva works, right? So we're using
Mm,
S3 for backups. We're using, the compute that we do use turns on and turns off as we need it, right? We're not
right.
when you lift and shift a backup server into the cloud, you're running that server 24/7 because that thing still thinks it's a physical box in a data center, right?
Hmm.
You can't just turn it off to save money, because it will confuse the hell out of the server and the application, right? We're
Right. Right.
designed to do that, right? So anyway, I don't know if that.
Well, so am I putting and you just, I mean, I just have so many. You're right. We talked about this in the pre talk. I mean, we could go on for days about backups, right, in archive
It's literally
because
my job.
this is exciting, because everything from the typical user that's just in front of a laptop or desktop, right, all the way up to like enterprise organization, data centers, right, how important backup is very vital to every aspect of your life, right? If you sit there and restore just an iPhone or Android, it's because it's been backed up from the latest backup, right, that it had. And so though even the apps, right, they're backing up, right, constantly, and I have so many questions when it comes down to, where to at what point do you do backups, because
All the
it
time.
seems like it changes though, Curtis. Like it literally changes. Like it seems like every 5 years, people have different opinions about like, oh, I should back up every 5 days. I should back up every this, or whatever.
Yeah,
And it just seems like it changes. Is that something that changes? Like your blood pressure signs, right? Like what they say, after
it
five
really
years.
backup frequency and backup retention are really business requirements that every business should discuss, right?
Okay,
If you're backing up every 5 days, that means you're going to lose 5 days worth of data.
right,
I think I I want to know what business is fine with losing 5 days worth of data. That makes no
right,
sense to me, right? To me, it should be multiple times a day, right?
right,
Um, depending on which part of the product we support, either every 5 minutes or every hour. The only reason not to do that is cost, and whether or not it hurts your compute, right? But we're so quick, we're in and out, nobody even notices we're running, right? So if you can back up more frequently, why
it's better.
wouldn't you,
If you have the
right?
storage to
Um,
hold the backups,
yeah. Well, and
capacity.
if you're doing incremental forever, block level incremental forever, the way we do, doing it more frequently doesn't cost you more storage.
Mm,
It just means that you're running backups more frequently. So then the question is, well, what impact does that have on my server? And if the answer
mhm.
is, well, not, we're literally in there for a couple of minutes and we're out,
Yeah.
right? Because we're looking for the new blocks, then we're doing dedupe against those blocks, and we're like, are these new to us? Have we ever seen these before?
Mm,
Nope. Okay,
yeah.
then if
Especially if
we've
you
seen
do it
them
at
before,
the yeah, especially if you do it at
yeah,
at certain times where there's not a lot of commotion going on, right? You're
right,
doing it at
right.
nighttime or something, bam, knock it out. Nothing else is going on the compute and nothing's very active in the CPUs and all that stuff during that time. So you're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're doing it during the day, right? Right. Even if you're doing
Uh,
it once an hour, if you're doing it so quickly, right, and you're not having a performance impact on the server, why not
mhm.
do it that way? That's all I'm saying.
That's true. That's
You know?
true. That's
Yeah.
true. That's a great point. All right, Curtis. I mean, we can go on forever and ever, but I definitely want to cut it down right now, and I want to really. We need to create this. I mean, this was so exciting. We need to create some type of like board or not board, maybe a panel discussion where we're talking about archive backups. Because especially in the government industry, I feel like they're so far behind, even though they think they're ahead. A lot of times, they're behind. When it comes down to being innovative, right? I mean, as technology changes and all these different things change, I mean, they're forced to go to the cloud and they're fighting it, right? But you just gave
Right.
a ridiculous amount of reasons why you should
Right.
just put in the cloud, especially if you're smaller. You take that entire organization, the government, but you break it into individual silos. A lot of them are individually, they're siloed out, and so they're doing their backup. One organization within this huge company, one group, maybe the business development group, they're backing up their stuff here, and then the technology group is like, no, 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 I'm going to back my stuff up on prem. I don't care, and they don't even
Right.
have that much data, right? Just send that crap to the cloud, right?
Right.
And stop playing.
Right.
And so, you've given us a lot of insight. What I've learned today is that tape is definitely cheaper, from many aspects, right? Overall TCO, a lot of times I've been educated the wrong way, so I've been ignorant to that subject. A lot of times they're like, oh, just go object store, just go this, right? And I think they're saying that you have to really look at who's telling you this. It's a sales organization. So they
Right.
got to sell what they think they're making the most money out of, and they're going to swindle you that way. And something else, right? Do not archive your backup, right? Or don't say it, right? Because
Yeah.
Curtis is going
Don't
to be
say that.
pissed off. No, not really because of that, but an archive it still needs a backup, as you mentioned, and I thought that was really dope and really educational experience for the audience. What do you want to leave with the audience?
Just maybe if you had a backup system that was as easy as Druva, maybe you wouldn't hate backup so much. That'd be, that'd be maybe the reason you don't like backups is you've had one of these other backup systems that are hard to
Yeah,
manage, right? That'd
Druva.
be, yeah.
No. That's amazing. Definitely check out Druva on the site. What is that? Is it just www.druva.com or
DRUVA, yeah, .com.
DRUV? Okay, great. Definitely check that out, everybody. So I want to get into this really quick subject that we do every single podcast. It's a game, right? We're geeking it
Can't
out all
wait.
the time. We just geeked it out like for an hour, right? Now we want to let the audience know that we have fun too. We do think about certain things like cheese or the Super Bowl. We have our opinions about that, and so we have a guest on here, Curtis, aka Mr. Backup, and he is going to be able to play the game today. So what I'm going to do, Curtis, is ask you a series of topics. Just throw it out there, right? And you get to say whether you think it's overrated, underrated, or right where it needs to be. Ready to
Sounds
go?
good. Ready.
All right. Cold weather.
Underrated.
Underrated?
Yeah,
I hate it.
I live in San Diego. We don't know what cold weather
Oh,
is, right? So I like
see,
it, once in a while, right?
okay. That makes sense because if you experience it, for me, we're sitting here, it's getting ready to drop to 20 degrees for the next 2 days. It's just snowed and then
I,
it got sunny, and I'm
I
tired of
lived in
this crap
Chicago.
already.
I lived in
Oh
Chicago
man.
for a while. I know what it's like, but
Oh,
I don't know.
that's why you moved to San Diego, right? You said screw
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely. Hell with that.
Yeah. All right. Learning coding.
Definitely underrated, right? I think even though like it's where a lot of IT people get their start, and I think there's a thought process that you learn, like a logic process that you learn by learning coding. Something. It doesn't even matter necessarily what it is,
Yeah.
but I think there's a real benefit there.
I agree. It helps you think differently, right? You have this one track mind. Once you start learning coding, you really think helps you think outside the box. For in my opinion. All right, the printer.
Printer? What this? Wait, that one right there. Uh,
Yeah,
um, I hate printers. Like
I hate it.
how can we do away with printers? They're just a giant pain in the butt. Overrated is not. I don't know what to say. Overrated. I'm going to say
Yeah.
overrated. I wish that
Uh-huh.
we could do away with them. Why do that? Every once in a while I have to print some. The main reason I print something out so that I can
Why?
sign it and then fax it to somebody, which is
I know.
just
I'm like, what
stupid,
the heck?
right? Yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
make
let's
this
just
easier for me?
yeah, yeah. Can't you use e-sign, man? You ever heard of
Yeah,
DocuSign? Huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Anyway, so
That's the
overrated
only
for sure.
reason why I have it as well. I agree. That's the only reason is because there are companies out there that randomly. I actually had to buy a printer one time. This was like a year ago, just because of a company that made me sign something, and I had to print it out and then
Yeah,
sign it and then fax it. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And of course, when I fax it, I'm using like Tiny Scanner on my app on phone. And I just fax it over. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm like, look, man, why would you put me through such a painful process? The way the generation is
DocuSign,
going.
baby.
You know the way everybody's going.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right, pizza.
Oh, uh, uh, underrated. Pizza is the bomb. I think pizza is all the food groups put together, in one place.
Mhm.
And I'll take pizza. And by the way, anchovies. I'm all about the
You
anchovies.
all about the anchovies, man?
Yeah,
I like
you
the
know the best thing
mushrooms
about
and make it.
anchovies is
What about it?
nobody eats your leftovers. You can
Yeah,
put
nobody does
you put that
that.
piece in the fridge, it'll be there a week later.
That's very true. That's very true. All right. Next one. Next two. All right. Oceanside Harbor Beach.
Oh, Oceanside Beach is I think it's underrated. People think of, Oceanside itself like as a part of San Diego County. It's not like the
Hmm.
sexy part of Oceanside. It's not the sexy part of San Diego, like let's say La Jolla or Pacific Beach, but it's
Hmm.
a beautiful beach. We have a nice long pier. There used to be a restaurant at the end of the pier. They're bringing that back. There was a Ruby's restaurant at the end of the pier
Hmm.
that closed. Now we're bringing that back. It's the surf is good here. We have a international surfing competition every year.
Oh man,
Uh,
it is
Scuba
a big
diving,
surf
not so much.
area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a big scuba diver. Scuba diving, not so much. We go down a little bit for that, but
Hmm.
other than that, it's a nice spot.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Last one. Hardcover books.
Overrated. Again, right. These are every one of these books. I think looking at them, yeah, every one of those books is paperback. Many of which are mine. Right. Let's see,
Uh-huh.
those are mine there. I think that's mine up there. Those are all. Yeah, I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, I like paper. I like paper books, right?
Hmm.
I still, I still like to read a book like that. Although I actually prefer doing most of my reading via audiobooks. But if I am going to read, I
Yeah.
want I
Oh
want
man,
something in my
me
hand.
too. I'm all about
Yeah,
the audiobooks now, right? I'm driving, I'm on a plane or something, whatever it is. I'm like, look, just give me an audiobook, and I'm learning so much right about it, and
I'll give you my
I think
favorite
that
audiobook, which is "As You Wish: The Inside
as
Story
you
of the
wish.
Making of the Princess Bride."
I'm gonna
Um,
write that down now.
Yeah. If any do you watch The Princess Bride? You seen The Princess Bride?
No, no, I haven't.
Wait, you never seen that movie? Well, you got to watch the
I
movie
haven't.
first. It's a movie from
Okay,
the
okay.
'90s. You're
Oh,
you're a
wait a minute.
young
You
guy.
said
You're getting
Princess Bride? I feel like
Princess Bride.
Princess Bride. Okay,
Carrie
no, no.
Carrie Elwes and Robin Wright. Um, a very young, beautiful Robin Wright. Young Carrie Elwes as well. It's a swashbuckling sort of pirates and romance and whatnot.
Mhm.
Great movie. And what this is it's the story of the making of the movie, which is an incredible movie, and it's told by and narrated by Carrie Ellis, which was one of the two main actors in the movie. It's a great one.
Man, all right. So I wrote that down. I'm definitely going to watch it. I might make my wife watch it too. I don't know if is she gonna like it too. You think, or it
I think
just
so.
depends.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm a big
I don't know.
movie guy.
Somebody
I love movies.
the only the
I'll
only
watch it.
criticism when you watch a Princess Bride with modern sensibilities, you're like, oh, the special effects suck, dude. It was the '90s, like like we didn't know special effects, right?
Yeah, that's trying to like
Uh,
they're trying to talk about the Lion King. They're trying everything now. Yes, it is in different type of it's a different type of technology, different type of era. So You
Yeah.
can't compare it, right?
No.
You got all those great movies. It's still quality movies, right? Just the
Absolutely.
picture was not quality, of course, and we didn't know that back then, right? Who cares?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
best to us. So, look, Curtis, I thank you, aka Mr. Backup. I really thank you for being on the podcast. This has been an excellent show. Audience, definitely tune in. Mr. Backup is the person to go to, okay, for all your questions, answers, and conversation related to backup. Audience, thank you for being listening to Data is My Science podcast, show that makes data a passion. I am your host again, Dapper Data. Where can they reach you at, Mr. Backup? And is there anything that you're promoting right now?
Yeah, absolutely. You can check out my podcast. Would just search for "Restore It All" wherever you listen for podcasts, and also you can get a free ebook copy of my latest O'Reilly book at druva.com/ebook.
Great, great, great. Hey, look, audience, definitely check the ebook out. Definitely check the podcast out. And then if you ever want to reach out to me, you can always reach out to me at mrdapperdata.com on any one of the social media platforms at Mr. Dapper Data. You can definitely reach me on youtube.com/Dapper Data, and definitely check out my book, www.mrdapperdata.com/Dapper Book. Thank you, audience, and peace until next week.